were held prisoner in the Garden of Eden by an unjust, cruel, and vindictive God. Until Lucifer, through his agent Satan, set man free from this garden by giving him the gift of intellect. Through the use of intellect, man will conquer the earth, will conquer nature, and will himself become God. It's taught in every Masonic temple in this land, every secret brotherhood, every secret society, every mystical temple, every occult organization teaches the Luciferian philosophy.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Taquan Lee, and on behalf of Setting the Record Straight, I'm coming back with another video talking to you guys today about Freemasonry. Now, I'm going to be posting a new video about Freemasonry and how it is involved with Gnosticism and whatnot with that. But today, I'll be talking about how witchcraft is also involved with Freemasonry as well. I'll be going into this book that I've went over already, Occult Theocracy by Edith Starr Miller, Lady Quinn Borrow, if I'm saying her name correctly. And it talks about, in one of these chapters is written in Roman numerals that I don't know because it's a big number. I only know 1 through 10, by the way. But no, it's saying that in this chapter it talks about on page 122, witchcraft, and it says Margaret Alice Murray, writing in the witch cult in Western Europe, establishes both the phallic and religious character of the craft. In her remarkable book, from which we extract part of the following valuable information, the deity worshipped by the witches was, in some cases, Lucifer, as the good God in opposition to Adonai. Adonai is Jesus, the Christian God in his character of the benefactor of humanity, and in other instances Satan, the same spirit as the principle of evil. This is evident from the various references to their deity adduced in the trials of persons accused of this heresy. In both cases, however, the devotees, whether of Lucifer or Satan, were obliged formally to renounce Christ. Both, whether you are a Luciferian or if you're a Satanist, you are told to denounce Christ, the Holy Ghost, and the Christian God before embracing the double faith, which was the logical outgrowth of the Mazdian, Manichaean, dualist doctrine of the double divinity. Now, it's talking about Manichaean. Now, that's on the next page where it talks about them briefly, and it says, Manichaeism is the religion of the followers of Manes, a slave who was sold to a widow who freed and adopted him, thus making him the son of a widow. A name which was after him passed to all of his followers and is still used in Masonic lodges. So Masons use people who were involved with witchcraft in their names. And it says, of Manichaeism, C.W. Oliver, considered an authority of all Masonic matters, writes, Manichaeism was one of the most important attempts to found a universal religion and to reconcile the Christian, the Buddhist, and Mazdian with the Greek philosophy. It presented the same syncretic ideas found later among Muslim Druses and among Sikhs, if I'm saying that correctly. It failed in the first place because Islam presented a much simpler system in the East, and because in the Western Christianity was already developing. In the time of Manes, a religion which aimed at reconciling the paganism of Italy and Gaul with the ethics of Christ. Then it goes on to talk about how Manes repudiated Judaism and, like the Gnostics, regarded Jehovah as an evil god. So they had the same belief as the Gnostics. The Manichaeans were more hated and feared by Catholic Christians than any other sect. They were still in existence in spite of constant persecution as of late 10th century. And it also talks about how the doctrine of Manes could be summed up as follows. He believed in two gods, or more exactly principles, the principle of good and that of evil. So like the yin-yang, two forces, where both one good, one evil, but they're equal. And then it says this, before the creation of the world, the people of darkness revolted against the God, and God, incapable of withstanding the attack, gave to them a portion of his essence. The people of darkness, having within them the principle of evil by their very nature, and the principle of good which they had just acquired, were able to constitute the world. Where both these principles are combined, but where but where the principle of evil predominates as the natural characteristic of its originators. Man is a mixture of two natures: the spiritual being, the work of God; the body, and especially sex, the work of the devil. So as we can see, these people have this dualistic mind of, there's a force of good, then there's a force of evil. But the thing is, yes, there is good in this world, yes, there is evil. But the devil is not on par with Jesus Christ or any of the three in the Godhead. Satan cannot defeat God. Satan can't do nothing with God. Like Nick Fury said, Samuel L. Jackson character in the Avengers movie when he was talking to Loki, this is what Satan is to God.
You try to escape, you so much as scratch that glass. 30,000 feet straight down in a steel trap. You get how that works? Ant, boot.
So if stating that the devil has no type of power in his own, or if with any weapon, whether a nuke, bombs, whatever he's creating in that secret laboratory of his, he cannot create or do anything with God. He is the ant, and God will forever be the boot. Manichaeism possessed its dogmas, literatures, devotees, and churches. But again, to quote Oliver, first and foremost among the manifestations of what had become devil worship, we find the black mass or devil masses of the Middle Ages, from which the ceremonial and ritual of black magic are derived. The principle which forms the very essence of the devil, the idea of opposition, also underlies the whole ceremonial and ritual of black magic and black masses. Such ideas are repeating prayers backwards, reversing the cross. So inverted crosses. So when you wear those inverted crosses, you know what you're doing now. I'm telling you, it's Satanism. It's devil worship. The inverted cross represents Peter. Peter, he didn't feel himself worthy to die the way Jesus died, so he asked to be turned upside down. So it's disrespectful to Peter. It's disrespectful to the apostle of Jesus Christ. It's disrespectful to God. Now let's continue. And it says this: consecrating obscene or filthy objects, the Baphomet, by the way, are typical of this sense of opposition or desecration, such as also a recognized form of mental disease. The word to the whole of the practices of black magic is desecration. Yet another authority not to be overlooked, namely Abbé Boreal, author of the memoirs Persevere à l'histoire du Jacobinisme, shows the remarkable analogy between the dogmas and rituals of Freemasonry, people, Templarism, and those of Manichaeism. So Templarism is talking about the Knights Templars, because if you don't know, if you've played Assassin's Creed, if you watch many different movies, you found the Knights Templars with that red cross coming down and with their knights and their swords and everything, and it talks about how they were wealthy people. Yes, that's what it's talking about. But these people secretly worshiped the Baphomet. They went to many other different secret societies, picked up on what they were doing, accepted what they were doing, brought it into their little ceremonies and rituals. And on Friday the 13th, so when people get Friday the 13th, and you're like, Friday the 13th, guess who's playing Jason, like how Nicki Minaj said? They're talking about the Knights Templars, and I bet she know that too, though. But let me continue, though. It says, grades concur in number and signs are, grades concur in number and signs are identical. The mourning for Jacques Molay is a ceremony analogous to that practice by the Manichaeans in remembrance of Manes and known as Bema. The term Macbenak, still used in Masonic lodges, was the reminder of the execution of Manes, which all Manichaean adepts sought to avenge. The practice of so-called fraternity or brotherhood was then Manichaeism, extended only to the adepts of the sect, just as it is similarly practiced by Freemasons towards one another only. The question which naturally comes up to one's mind when one follows closely the links of Manichaean chain is this: is not Freemasonry, such as we see it today, the full development of the idea of Cabrigas, or Manes the slave, the apotheosis of Manichaeism, was achieved by our Pike, sovereign pontiff of the Universal Freemasonry. Excuse me, people. So it was talking about that. Let me go back into what it was talking about with the witchcraft. It goes along to talk about the god of the witches seems to have been generally represented either as the double-faced god Janus or the goat-headed Baphomet. The later variously modified but usual, bearing between the horns on his head and the phallic emblem of a lighted candle. Esoterically, this candle symbolized the sex force or kundalini risen to the pineal gland. Cotton Mather stated that the witches formed themselves after the manner of congregational churches, and M.A. Murray gives the following description of their leader. The chief or supreme head of each district was known to the recorders as the devil. And it goes on to talk about many other different things. It talks about on page 114 as it says, among other obscene and phallic witch rites was the black mass celebrated by a renegade priest upon the naked body of the adept for whose benefit it was performed. It symbolized the perversion of all the rites of the Catholic Church. Black candles instead of white, inverted crosses, chalices containing the blood of newborn infants sacrificed for ritual purposes, urine for holy water. All these were part of the paraphernalia needed, according to historians, to propitiate, if I'm saying that correctly, the Prince of Darkness and his retinue of minor devils. Besides evocations, casting of spells, and sex orgies, devil worship entails such inanities as desecration of the host stolen from the Catholic churches and the kissing of the Grand Master Devil on the tail of the membrum relay. Then it says only hosts consecrated in Roman Catholic churches could serve for black masses purposes, as it was essential in order to achieve desecration that the miracle of transubstantiation should have taken place. The host had actually to be not merely to represent the body and blood of Christ. Then after that, it goes on to talk about some other things. And this is where I want to be at right here. And it says this. Proof of the foregoing devil worship and contact with spirits or devils is found in history even as late as 1819, when we read that the devil met Margaret, Nean Gilbert, etc. Studying the history of Mopsus in 1761, we find his grand masters, grand mistresses, and deacons adorned with the distinctive garter of the witch performing the ceremony of the kissing of the devil's tail as part of the ritual of the 18th century Masonry. The coven of the Middle Ages is the Masonic lodge of today, but the craft remains the craft. So when you hear people talking about the craft, they're talking about witchcraft. Yeah, you're working on your craft, you're doing this and that, but you're studying and you're doing satanic philosophies that's been passed down to the many different generations up till now. But then after that, we can skip all of that and we can go to where it talks about Albert Pike and Giuseppe Mazzini. And it talks about how... I'm going to just read this real quick, and it says, Pike was a great student of the Kabbalah and the occult. Mazzini had understood that Freemasonry was a powerful lever with which to revolutionize the world. But he saw it divided into numerous rites, often rivals and even hostile to one another. So as we can see, Freemasons didn't always get along until there was a sudden change within the dogma and certain things that was being taught to these people. But it says, Mazzini, who was very practical, said that it would be inadvisable to favor one rite only to the exclusion of all the others. In a letter to Albert Pike dated January 22nd, 1870, he writes, "We must allow all the federations to continue just as they are, with their systems, their central authorities, and their diverse modes of correspondence between high grades of the same rite, organized as they are at present. But we must create a supreme rite, which will remain unknown, to which we will call those Masons, so those Masons who are selected, of high degree whom we shall select. With regard to their brothers in Masonry, these men must be pledged to the strictest secrecy. Through the supreme rite, we will govern all Freemasonry, which will become the one international century, the more powerful because its direction will be unknown."
And from the ashes of their world, we'll build a better one!
Symbols are used by Masonic lodges, witch covens, Satanists, and alchemists to directly access parts of the brain which respond to strong shapes and colours. Just as the saying goes, a picture paints 1,000 words, so magical symbols can be used to convey a multi-layered message or command. The use of symbols to convey the desire or will of the magician is generally referred to as sigil magic. To make a magical sigil, you first write down your desire or spell. You then remove all vowels and all repeating consonant letters. You then rearrange the remaining letters into an easily remembered symbol. This symbol, or sigil, contains the original spell. Sigils are often found in company logos. Every time you watch television, visit the supermarket, or walk the street, your subconscious is bombarded with sigils. In fact, you are living in one giant sigil.
All it says in the book of Revelations is that the number of the beast is 666. That every barcode, except for postal barcodes, on this planet contains the number 666. And did you know that? Do you want me to show you?
Yeah.
Just stop the camera a second, I'll get a barcode from somewhere. You've got 3 sets in effect of double lines, one in the middle, one either side. And those double lines represent the number 6. In barcode technology, so you've got 666 on every single commercial barcode and every product. Every single barcode on this planet has got 666 in it, and that is millions and trillions of products. 6 there, 6 in the middle, and 6 on that side, and that's it, surrounded by 666, the number of the beast, the mark of the beast.
Now, as I was at work, I was looking for some objects that I needed for a project. And as I'm looking, I'm seeing 666 everywhere. And then also, when I was there, I was seeing 999 as well. Thus, at the time when Mazzini formed the scheme of unifying Freemasonry by creating one central universal direction reserved to a small number of high Masons, chosen with the greatest care, he selected our Pike as an ally. It was agreed, continues Margiotta, that the existence of this right would be kept strictly secret, and that no mention of it would ever be made in the assemblies of the lodges and inner shrines of other rites, even when by accident the meeting might happen to be composed exclusively of brothers having the perfect initiation, for the secret of the new institution was only to be divulged with the greatest caution to a chosen few belonging to the ordinary high grades. To recruit adepts, they planned to use some members of other rites, but in the beginning they meant to rely principally on those among the initiates of ancient and accepted Scottish rites who were already addicted to occultism. And then it's talking about down here, one will better understand these precautions knowing that Palladism is essentially a Luciferian rite. Its religion is Manichaean Neo-Gnosticism, teaching that the divinity is dual and that Lucifer is the equal of Adonai, with Lucifer, the god of light and goodness, struggling for humanity against Adonai, the god of darkness and evil. And stating this principle of the secret cult of the triangles, our Pike had only specified and unveiled the dogmas of the high grades of all other masonries. For in no matter what rite, the great architect of the universe is not the God worshipped by the Christians. So as we can see, people, this Freemasonry, has a hidden secret rite, It's a hidden secret grade within them that is teaching the true meaning of what Freemasonry is. So whether you're first degree, second, third, 15, 16, 17, 21, 23, 24, 25, 26, whatever it may be, when you are 31st, 32nd, 33rd, you know the truth. But even then, if you're 31st or 32nd, you don't even really know what's going on. They're still hiding stuff from you as well. You got to get to the very top. But even then, they're lying to people because you're taught that Lucifer is good, which is the ultimate lie. The ultimate lie, people. Come on now. Let me show you this video real quick where it talks about how witchcraft and Freemasonry have the same rituals, same screening, everything, people. It gets no plainer than this, y'all.
The sun and moon represents the two grand principles of all generations, the active and passive, the male and female. Both shed their light upon their offspring, the blazing star, or Horus. These Masonic authorities agree that the symbols of Freemasonry are occultic and derive from paganism. The alleged occultic rituals and symbolism that are central to Freemasonry were tremendously significant to me personally. I had been deeply involved in the many facets of the occult, including witchcraft, for a number of years. Witchcraft is the religion of paganism. It's the worship of the sun god and the moon goddess in various forms.
I was involved in the occult for about 12 years.
Steve Warr was a practicing member of a coven of witches.
For me, that is, I was constantly on a day-to-day basis reading, searching, as well as practicing arts such as divination, getting in contact with the dead through mediums, tarot cards, crystal balls, everything that we would consider occult, I was involved in.
There's a great deal of symbolism in witchcraft itself. Many of the implements used have significance in terms of natural elements, such as the wand representing air, the athame, a sword representing fire, a chalice with water, and a pentagram representing earth. And these would be combined in various manners in order to take advantage of the spiritual forces that were felt to be in operation at that particular time.
And it was heavily ritualistic, with the wearing of robes, the drawing of magic circles, the invoking of gods to aid the practitioner, as well as just anything you would do, even if it was not in a formal ritual, always had something to do with ritual. Even if it was casting a spell, you would always light the candles, bring out the elements, set up your altar.
Some of the parallels between Freemasonry and witchcraft show such a similarity that it cannot possibly be coincidental. Similarities in ritual, wording, and symbolism are so close in several instances that it clearly suggests a common origin. To examine this possibility, I spoke with a number of former Masons and compared their Blue Lodge initiations with the experiences of former occultists.
In the initiation in Freemasonry, we had to be recommended by another Mason.
Well, in order to join witchcraft, you have to be first screened. You have to be recommended by somebody currently in witchcraft.
Well, when I was initiated, I was blindfolded and bound by a rope, and on your bare chest was thrust a point of a spear.
In witchcraft, we were initiated through a very involved ritual, initiation ceremony, wherein the candidate was led blindfolded, bound by a rope to the edge of the magic circle.
And the rope is around your neck and you're led forward. And up front, in the eastern end of the building, is a person who's a worshipful master. And you kneel down before him as if he were a god.
You were met by the high priest or high priestess at that time, usually with a sword to your chest.
When I went to enter the lodge, a sharp object was put to my left breast. And I was warned that should I reveal any of the secrets of Freemasonry, to know what to expect.
When you're presented before the high priest, a sword is held against your chest, and you actually take a blood oath, promising to remain faithful to the secrets of witchcraft.
Well, when you are in the room, this blindfold is taken away from you, and this is a time when they say that you're coming from darkness into light.
During the initiation ceremony, the initiate is led by the lieutenant of the high priest and is challenged at the edge of the circle by someone saying, "Who goes there?" And the answer is, "One from the world of darkness." In Masonry, the prayers are ended with "so mote it be."
Oh, and one of the other aspects of, or distinctives of the craft was that we would always end any spell or ritual where we released the power, this is where the power was released, with the word "so mote it be."
I was intrigued to discover that witchcraft and Freemasonry had so much in common. However, in white witchcraft, followers dismiss the biblical concept of Lucifer. Freemasonry goes so far as to actually call Lucifer God. In the words of Sovereign Pontiff of Universal Freemasonry, Albert Pike, yes, Lucifer is God, and unfortunately, Adonai, the Hebrew God of the Bible, is also God. And the true and pure philosophical religion is the belief in Lucifer, the equal of Adonai, but Lucifer, God of light and God of good, is struggling for humanity against Adonai, the God of darkness and evil.
Now I'm going to read you this last part, then I'm going to leave you guys off with this, and it says, "To you, Sovereign Grand Inspectors General, we say this, that you may repeat it to the brethren of the 32nd, 31st, and 30th degrees. The Masonic religion should be, by all of us initiates of the high degrees, maintained in the purity of the Luciferian doctrine. If Lucifer were not God, would Adonai, the God of the Christians, whose deeds prove his cruelty?" So like I told you before, they believe that the God of the Bible, Adonai, Jesus Christ, is evil. And it just told you right then and there, people. I'm telling you. None of this that I'm telling you is coming from my own mouth. So I don't write these books. I don't put any of this information out. I don't do none of that. All I'm doing is bringing you guys information. And this is what they're clearly telling you guys. So I'm hoping this is waking you guys up. Predify and hatred of man, barbarism and repulsion, for science. Will Adonai and his priests culminate him? Yes, Lucifer is God, and unfortunately, Adonai is also God. So they kind of bummed out that God is Jesus is God as well. So they admit to it. They know that he is. For the eternal law is that there is no light without shade, no beauty without ugliness, no white without black. For the absolute can only exist as two gods, darkness being necessary to light to serve as its fowl, as the pedestal is necessary to the statue, and the brake to the locomotive. So as we can see, like I told you guys before, they believe in the yin-yang. Light cannot exist without darkness, darkness cannot exist without light. So therefore, they both must be equal. They must be on the same playing field. And the Bible does not say that.
Jesus Christ is central to the Christian faith. In fact, without him, there is no Christianity. That is because Christ claimed to be God incarnate, and as such, Christ cannot be separated from his teachings. He did not teach a system of morality to lead one to God. Instead, he claimed to be the way to the Father. But what is the official Masonic teaching about Jesus Christ? Listen again to Supreme Pontiff of Scottish Rite Freemasonry, Albert Pike. It, Masonry, reverences all the great reformers. It sees in Moses, the lawgiver of the Jews, in Confucius and Zoroaster, in Jesus of Nazareth, and in the Arabian iconoclast, great teachers of morality and eminent reformers, if no more. In other words, Jesus Christ is reduced to being a great reformer, no different than Confucius or Zoroaster. But the Bible says plainly in Acts chapter 4, "Neither is there salvation in any other, for there is none other name under heaven given among men whereby we must be saved." The very essence of Christianity is man's inability to save himself. For this cause, God sent his only begotten Son to die on the cross and make atonement for us. How different this is from the teaching of Manly Hall in his book, The Lost Keys of Freemasonry. The true Mason is not creed-bound. He realizes with the divine illumination of his lodge that as a Mason, his religion must be universal. Christ, Buddha, or Mohammed, the name means little, for he recognizes only the light and not the light-bearer. He worships at every shrine, bows before every altar, whether in temple, mosque, pagoda, cathedral, and realizes with his true understanding the oneness of all spiritual truths. No true Mason can be narrow, for his lodge is the divine expression of all broadness. No true Mason can be narrow, for his lodge is the divine expression of all broadness. An interesting statement, since in the Bible Jesus Christ says, "Broad is the way that leadeth to destruction, and many there be which go in thereat. Because strait is the gate, and narrow is the way, which leadeth unto life, and few there be that find it."
When Masons say that Jesus Christ is simply another great moral teacher, another great moral prophet, equal with Buddha, in fact, Masons teach, according to Albert Pike, that Buddha was the first great Masonic teacher. So they're equating Jesus with Buddha, with Muhammad, with the religious leaders as just another religious leader. He is not God. He is not the incarnate Savior who came to save men from their sins, because Masons do not need a Savior. Masons feel they can save themselves through moral good deeds.
In the lodge that I belonged to, we had a Muslim apply for membership. And the membership of our lodge didn't know how to initiate him, because we knew we couldn't initiate him on the Holy Bible. So we wrote a letter to the Grand Lodge of Alberta asking him for instruction. And a letter came back stating that we should place the Koran and the square and compass beside the Bible and the square and compass on the altar and initiate him with full honors.
Bible-believing Christians accept the fact that God exists in a trinity of three persons, that is, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. But what most people, including many Masons, don't realize is that the God of Freemasons, the great architect of the universe, is also a trinity.
In both the Scottish and York Rite, you discover that Masons are on a journey seeking to find the lost name of God. Part of their religion, they say, is that the sacred name of God has been lost. And they tell this whole story of the building of Solomon's temple and the architect, Hiram Abiff, who, in building the temple, lost the sacred name of God. And so they say that Masons are on this search to recover the lost name of God. And finally, when you get to the Royal Arch degree, the Mason is finally told what the secret name of God is that only Masons can know. And they pride themselves that they alone are the custodians of the secret name of God. And that name can only be whispered among Masons by three Masons, each saying a syllable. The name is Jobulon. It is a combination of three words, Jehovah, Baal, and Osiris, the Egyptian sun god.
Yah, Baal, on. Yah, Baal, on. Yah.
And what a Mason is worshiping in the Masonic Lodge is a three-headed god made up of Jehovah, Baal, which was the fertility god of Baalbek in Lebanon, and Osiris, the Egyptian sun god, represented by the phallic symbol.
In analogical and universal dynamics, one can only lean on that which will resist. Thus, the universe is balanced by two forces which maintain its equilibrium, the force of attraction and that of repulsion. These two forces exist in physics, philosophy, and religion, and the scientific reality of the divine dualism is demonstrated by the phenomena of polarity and by the universal law of sympathies and antipathies. That is why the intelligent disciples of Zoroaster, as well as, after them, the Gnostics, the Manichaeans, and the Templars have admitted as the only logical, metaphysical conception the system of the two divine principles fighting eternally, and one cannot believe the one inferior in power to the other. As I just told you, that yes, God is inferior to the devil. He is more powerful. He can destroy him just like that. If he just even thought of it, it's a wrap for the man. But let me continue though. Thus, the doctrine of Satanism is a heresy, and the true and pure philosophic religion is the belief in Lucifer, the equal of Adonai. So they don't accept Satanism. They don't believe in Satan, but they'll believe in Lucifer though. But Lucifer, God of light and God of good, is struggling for humanity against Adonai, the God of darkness and evil. One must not lose sight of the fact that Pike occupied simultaneously the positions of Grand Master of the Central Directory of Washington and that of Grand Commander of the Supreme Council of Charleston and that of the Sergeant Pontiff of the Universal Freemasonry.
I was an FBI agent for 27 and a half years. At the time of my retirement, I was the senior special agent in charge of the FBI Los Angeles Division. I have been qualified in the courts as an expert on cults and satanic ritual abuse. I have information from various sources that judges, law enforcement, prosecutors, attorneys, doctors, and many prominent individuals, including actors, actresses, professional football and baseball players, are involved in these type activities. If you go back 225 or 30 years ago, you have what we call the Illuminati that was established in 1776. And the goals of the Illuminati, this is all very well documented, are to take over the world. One of the best ways of taking over the world is to control people's minds and to take over a country through the control of the minds. So what's happening in America, and based on my research and my interviews with numerous individuals, is that the powers that be, the higher-ups, the people in the Illuminati, are using the satanic cults as a means and as a tool to condition individuals and to make them victims of the mind control, MK Ultra mind control program. There's probably close to 4 million practicing Satanists in the United States alone, based on my intelligence information.
We have to remember that the papacy, and specifically the Black Pope, controls all high-level Freemasonry. That includes the Pope's Masonic Jewish Zionist running his Kingdom of Jerusalem. That includes the top Freemasons in this country, especially the temple there in Washington, D.C. That includes all of your big evangelists. For example, Billy Graham is a 33rd degree Freemason. Now I know that Billy Graham is a 33rd degree Freemason. Now I know the Billy Graham organization denies that, but it's still the truth, because we know, according to the honest 33rd degree Freemason who was truly converted to Christ when he believed the gospel and was saved by the grace of God, his name was Jim Shaw, that when he was inducted into the Order of the 33rd degree in Washington, D.C., he said there were two former presidents there on that, in that council, and one of them was Gerald Ford, a 33rd degree Freemason who pardoned Nixon, and the other was Jimmy Carter, 33rd degree Freemason. So there they are at the Grand Council. Another one was an international evangelist, which he later told others that it was Billy Graham, because the publisher refused to put Billy Graham's name in there. So Billy Graham was there. So Billy Graham is nothing more than the high-level Masonic shill for the papacy, which is also fraught with Freemasons, if you read the book In God's Name by David Yallop. And so we talk about Robert Schuller, for example. Robert Schuller is another 33rd degree Freemason. He went to Rome to get the Pope's blessing to build his Crystal Cathedral. And Robert Schuller is a personal friend of the anti-white, hateful racist Louis Farrakhan, who is another high-level Freemason who runs the Nation of Islam for the Archbishop of Chicago. So we have all these high-level Masonic leaders, black and white, of all these various different religions, working together for agitation among the peoples of this country, but never ever exposing the papacy as the true heart and soul and its real master.
So with saying that, I'm going to let you guys off there. I got to get started with my day now. But I just want to tell you guys that I love you. You guys have a blessed and safe day. Get in your word. Pray as much as you can. 3 times a day. Maybe even more than that. Because the devil is out here to kill, steal, and destroy. And we need to have on the full armor of Jesus Christ and the Holy Spirit, people. I'm telling you now. But I love you. Stay safe. Be safe. Get in your word. Just coming, people. We ain't playing.